Now, the partial government shutdown in the U.S. continues with no end in sight. Meanwhile, acting White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney weighed in on Fox News on Sunday.
Wednesday is really the first day that this kicks in. The paychecks, importantly, will go out on the 28th. I want everybody to understand no one is working without getting paid. Paychecks go out on the 28th. The next pay period that is impacted is January 11th. I think that is, it's very possible that this shutdown will go beyond the 28th and into the new Congress.
For more, let's welcome Republican pollster, Director of Research, Analytics and Digital Strategy for Ted Cruz's 2016 presidential campaign from Oklahoma City. We want to welcome you to the show, of course. Thank you very much indeed, Chris Wilson. Chris, first of all, does anyone look good in this scenario?
Well, so far, really, no, they don't. But I think the challenge is one of the weirdest shutdowns I've ever seen in that nobody seems to be paying that much attention to it. I mean, even around D.C., it's like there's a few people wandering around, but nobody seems to be, even the journalists don't even seem to be dialed in on it. So it's kind of has a bizarre feel to it. And a lot of that is because, as you just heard Mick Mulvaney saying, people are still getting paid right now. Two, I think the fact that it's over the holidays means that there's not a lot of people trying to get into national parks or other places where non-essential employees may have been furloughed. And then three, really, it's because it is a partial government shutdown, it frankly just doesn't affect that many people's lives. And because of that, you're right, nobody looks good ultimately, but I don't think right now anybody's really paying that much attention.
Well, that's a good point, Chris. I mean, you've been involved in politics a long time, and I wonder, I mean, is there a real political consequence to these shutdowns? I mean, have we had examples in the past where politicians, whether it's the president or the leaders in the Congress, that they've been affected by this?
Well, no question. I think that you can look at Newt Gingrich's career almost starting to kind of pinnacle and then go into a downturn during the government shutdown that he led back in the 1990s. And the interesting aspect of this, and what will be fascinating to watch just from political science perspective, is the blame for this is usually placed with Congress. And I do think that's one of the unique aspects of the Trump presidency is that he does have the ability to bypass traditional media, utilizing, I mean, you guys have been reading his Twitter post this morning, the whole time I've been sitting here, and it's he has that ability to communicate people directly through Twitter. Now, is he able to somehow push the blame and the consequences of this onto Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer? And frankly, it wouldn't be that surprising if he is, because that is where it has arrived at the past. I mean, almost every time there's been a government shutdown, it has been those who have suffered consequences have been the leaders of Congress. And now some of that could fall back on Mitch McConnell. He wasn't willing to invoke the nuclear option. But having said that, I do think there's an attitude right now that whereas you can debate about the wall all day long, but there is almost there is near universal support for border security. And so if this becomes about border security, then Trump wins. If Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer make it more about some kind of an internal battle between them, or Trump just throwing a fit to get his way, then the president loses. And that's kind of where we are in terms of what's going to be considered over the next few days and potentially weeks.
Chris, what if it remains about the wall, not about border security, but the wall? How does that poll, how did it poll when you've been trying to assess the popularity of it within his base and outside the base of Trump?
That's an important question. I think it is. That's why you see the president now trying to do everything he can to combine those two. If border security and the wall are somehow separated, then I think it becomes just a base issue. But let's be clear. This is the number one promise that Donald Trump made when he was running for president. As you mentioned, I worked for Ted Cruz in that 2016 campaign, and it was a very popular issue with Republican primary voters. And Donald Trump is about to go into the 2020 election, and if he doesn't have that achievement, that his number one commitment to point to as an accomplishment, I think it becomes very problematic for him. Now, to your question about how it polls with sort of swing voters, I think that is, it's one of those things that right now it is not a priority. And as you've been talking about on Bloomberg all morning, with the stock market starting to collapse, or I shouldn't say collapse, but tick down. People begin to focus more on the economy than they do when it's doing well. And so that could completely take focus off of immigration altogether. Now, having said that, I do find that in public opinion, immigration and the economy tend to be intrinsically tied. And so it's interesting to see there could be kind of a political jujitsu here, and that the economy starts to go down. And because of that, there becomes an increased focus on immigration, taking jobs that maybe Americans might have otherwise had. And so you could see these things kind of coming together to help the president. Now, how that plays out ultimately is, look, I've been wrong about Donald Trump since the first time he came down the escalators. I'm probably the last one to speculate on that accurately. But I do think, from a political perspective, right now, Republicans are in a little bit better position than Democrats are. But those things have the propensity to change overnight in this environment.
Great perspective on a day such as today. We're currently off by 2% on the market. But for your analysis, Chris Wilson, of course, a Republican pollster, we thank you.